Don't stop.
Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. I'm Randles-Friedman, your host, and I am here on a Saturday doing my intros for my podcast. And this is what I usually do on a Saturday morning. I sit here and I do my intros and just looking at my hair, how it's barely brushed, but my headphones is luckily kind of covering it up. And I'm just thinking about my week, about what I have coming up next week, because I'm going to be with my husband this week on September 17th. We will be together officially 27 years. We have been together more than half of my life, which is crazy. And it's just like, where did the 27 years go? Like, how did we... And I look back and I think about, like, I really thought about this the last week. Just we met, and it was all just such kind of luck, and it's so crazy how things happen and things fall in place. And I mean, I've said this in previous podcasts, and we did an episode of how we met and stuff. But a quick kind of recap of that is that we met on America Online after I moved to New York, and I just moved to the neighborhood where I was 4 or 5 blocks away from him. And we met like on a Tuesday night for a hookup on America Online in a chat room. And then he stayed the night, and we ended up like liking each other and dating each other. And then it's 27 years later, and it's like there were so many things that could have gone wrong where we wouldn't have met, or we shouldn't have met, or we could have said, or I could have been tired that night, or we wouldn't have met. I don't know. It's just so weird how everything that's meant to be falls into place. And I don't know. I couldn't imagine. Like, I do think about that. What would my life be if I didn't meet him? And I never would have moved to Switzerland, most likely. Would I have even been in the pharmaceutical industry, which is what my main job is? Maybe not. I mean, he's kind of helped me, make decisions about work, about jobs, taking a job or not taking a job. Would I have moved 18 times in the last 25 years? No, I probably wouldn't have, because I wouldn't have wanted to do a move to some of these cities by myself. I mean, moving to Raleigh, North Carolina as a gay man by yourself is not something I probably would have done. Would I have moved to Switzerland? Maybe I would have moved to Switzerland, but I don't know. That would have been really scary to move by yourself to another country. And there's just so much you need to do, and you need to have somebody to do it with you. So that would have been something that probably wouldn't have happened. Again, I mean, whenever I was going into my first job from finance, working at Merrill Lynch, to pharmaceutical, it was a completely different industry that I was moving into. And he supported me and probably told me, yeah, you can do this and you can do that. And I don't know, 27 years is just crazy to me that somebody like I remember whenever I was living in North Carolina, and there was this lesbian couple that we are still friends with, but we haven't seen them in a while. But Julie and Sue are their names. And I remember them saying to me and Andrew, and when was this? This was in the 2000s, maybe 2006 or 7 or 8, maybe. They were together 25 years, I think is what they said. And I thought, oh my God, like, how can somebody be with somebody that long? And it made me think of them like they must be so old. Like, I didn't realize how old Julie was, because she looks great. She still looks great. And I'm like, imagine spending your life with somebody for 25 years. And now I guess they've been together for probably 40 years at this point, or more. I'll actually have to reach out to Julie. And Julie, if you listen to my podcast, I'm going to text you this week and call you. But I just think it's kind of just crazy to me that you can spend your life with somebody and how quickly time goes by. And I feel like the older I get, the more time just goes by faster and faster. And my mom just said this to me this week when we were talking. She's like, "Can you believe I'm 75?" She goes, "I don't even know how I got here." She goes, "It feels like time is like speeding up." And she goes, "I don't know. How did I become 75 years old?" And she goes, "I don't feel 75." But I said, "Yeah, time. I do agree. I think time is just like going by fast, and just who knew I was going to be like, I'm 52 years old. This is crazy." And I've been in a 27-year relationship. I don't know, like, if I look back of all the adventures and stuff that Andrew and I have had for the last 27 years, we have done so much together. We've shared so many memories, and it's just bizarre to me. I don't know. I love it. I would not want to be single in today's world, and uh, I think if anything ever happened to our relationship, I don't know if I would even really want to date. I mean, I just the dating scene. All my friends that are single that are on these apps and doing things. I just don't know. I don't know if it would be for me. I think I'm at that point in my life where I would just like, I don't want to live with anybody again. So I'm very thankful I have my relationship with my husband. I feel very, very lucky. I haven't had to be out there in this crazy world and doing all this stuff alone. There's been so much stuff that we have gone through in 27 years. The moves, and we've been through 9/11 together. We've been moved to Switzerland. I mean, I could go on and on and on about the many, many adventures that we've had, both good and bad. So I love my husband. Now on to my guest today. My guest today is somebody that I believe requested to come on my podcast. Yes, he did. Or his maybe publicist reached out to me. And his name is Adam Swart. And I did a little research on him before he came on. And he's done interviews on Fox and Friends and Fox News and News Nation. And when I was talking to his publicist, I said, "Listen, this guy cannot come on my show and start talking about Republican this, Republican that, because that's just not what I'm doing." What he does is he does crowdsourcing. And he basically, if you are doing a protest, if you're doing a rally, if you're doing a corporate event, if you're doing, he talked about a story, which I thought was very interesting, where people needed people to be at their wedding to fill in for their family members that weren't going to be there. And so he basically will find people to attend events for you, no matter what it is. And so whenever I seen the news channels that he was doing interviews on, I'm like, this guy is going to be a Republican. He's going to want to come in and throw all his Republican views and stuff. But I was very, very surprised, which you will hear in the interview. He was born a Democrat, or he was a Democrat when he was younger. He's now an independent, and he does not take on projects that he doesn't necessarily believe in. So, if somebody came and needed, I don't know, let's think of something extreme. Let's say that neo-Nazis came and wanted to do a protest. He would not give them people to attend their protest. So that's very extreme, but there are people who would help with that, but he would not. So if he doesn't believe in something, he will not work with them. But he was just a really great guy. And I love it whenever I interview people and they surprise me of who they are, because sometimes I have these preconceived notions of who this people are. And I love being proven wrong about stuff like this. And I love it when people surprise me. And I think I think I even made it clear. I did tell him in the interview yesterday, I told him, I thought you were going to come on and be a Republican. I thought you were going to be this and that. I just had this whole image of who I thought he was because he did interviews on these conservative news stations. And I was completely wrong. So enjoy the interview with Adam. He was cute too. So, but he's in a relationship, and I asked, plus he's pretty sure he's a straight Jewish guy, but, cause I wanted to play setup and matchmaker for him. But I asked him, "Are you married?" And he said, "No, I'm not married, but I'm in a very committed relationship." So ladies or guys, he's off the table. Enjoy the episode. Hi, thanks so much for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. Today I have a guest who's been on a lot of shows recently. And we're going to talk with him about Crowds on Demand, because that is the company that he has created. And welcome to my show, Adam.
Hey Zach, thanks so much to be for being with you. It's awesome to chat with you and your audience here.
So tell me what inspired you. So first of all, tell my audience what Crowds on Demand is, the service that you offer, and then tell me what inspired you to kind of create this.
Crowds on Demand, largest protest company in the country. We are known for doing protests, advocacy campaigns. We're probably known most for our work in the political advocacy realm, but we also do a lot of events publicizing companies, dealing with corporate disputes, and otherwise kind of evangelizing various messages. We're kind of specialists in unconventional publicity, so sometimes that generates controversy, but I've been in business for 13 years, so we sort of have a way of doing things that have developed over the years, and that's why I'm here.
And what's the biggest event that you've kind of had to do a crowd for?
Oh, in terms of numbers, well into the thousands.
Really?
Well into the thousands. But I will say that is a minority in regards to our events, because we obviously that comes with a high price tag, and a high logistical hurdle, because in many cases, if you have 5,000 people, you're probably going to need permits and other kinds of regulatory things. You're going to have to provide bathrooms and medical and all that. So it definitely is an undertaking. So a much more common thing for us is to provide 50 people, 100 people, a few hundred people maybe. And that often suits the needs of our clients better, particularly the budget needs.
Yeah. I mean, your company is a great time to be alive because of all the protests that are kind of happening across the United States, especially with the current, whether you're for Donald Trump or against Donald Trump, or, for or against, you're Democrat or Republican or whatever the case may be, there's a lot of different protests happening. Are you kind of helping get people to go to those type of protests as well?
Well, there's certainly an uptick in activism and political engagement. It's not always a good thing broadly when you have that. I mean, I always joke that people in Middle Eastern countries are very politically engaged. That doesn't always bode well. So one thing I have been seeing, both anecdotally and in my business, is seeing a lot of people who weren't political get political. So, so it's certainly true. Now, one thing I will say, counter to a lot of public speculation, we tend not to immerse ourselves so much in major national debates. We try to push nuanced, different takes on it. So it's not to say we wouldn't involve ourselves in a national type debate. I mean, you mentioned Trump versus anti-Trump, right? But we tend to be hired by people who want to advance very specific messages within that take. So there's not so much of a point in having a protest against Trump. I mean, we all know that there are a bunch of people who oppose Trump, and conversely, there's not really much of a purpose in having a rally for Trump. We already know there's a lot of people who support Trump. I think the purpose of a protest is to bring awareness around issues that you may not have heard about, push leaders to do certain things or not to do certain things, or of course to promote a brand or a company or a cause within the broader zeitgeist. So a lot of what we do is more in that latter part, rather than kind of just provide people who are on one or another side of an issue that already has a ton of engagement.
Whenever you're getting people to come to any type of crowd or advocacy group or a corporate group, well, I guess corporate's different. Let's take the corporate out. But an advocacy group, let's say you're getting people to come in, I don't know what type of events you would maybe do with an advocacy group, but let's say you're doing a walk for breast cancer. Is that something you would maybe?
Good example. Yeah, absolutely.
So do all the people that you kind of pull in as people that will be part of this crowd, are they, do they have that? Are they supporting what they're going to, or?
Correct. Oh, absolutely. Now, you of course gave a very easy example, because for breast cancer, I don't know a lot of people who are for breast cancer. I generally people are anti-breast cancer. So in terms of having a walk to have awareness of breast cancer, like more or less 99.99% of people would be in support of that cause. So that's kind of a good example. Obviously, there are a lot of issues that are more contentious than that.
So let's say like you have somebody that they're having a pro-life event, let's say,
sure.
But so people that you are hiring to be a part of this rally or protest, if somebody is pro-choice, they're not going to go and be in the pro-life. No, right?
Absolutely not. And there's no way that they would even go to that because, like, okay, so you get let's just say you got $100, $200, $300 to attend, whatever the case may be. It really does depend. Yeah, I'm sure that's one of your questions is how much people get.
Yeah,
and that's not enough for someone to betray their conviction. So if your example of like, okay, if this was a pro-life rally, and you're a pro-choice activist, you're not going to just go to a pro-life rally just because you got a couple $100. Like that's absurd. And vice versa. I know plenty of people on both sides of those issues, but I would stress in regards to like a cause like that, I tend to try to advance causes within the cause. So it's not about, okay, pro-life rally or pro-choice rally. I would probably rather sort of, okay, if we were to do a pro-life event, maybe to kind of say, hey, here, let's focus on the high abortion rate in the Black community and why it is that is occurring, and try to kind of push policies within the Black community to kind of convince to sort of say, hey, look, why is this prevalent and who's behind that? So that might be an example. I'm not saying like that specifically, but that would be a sort of a tangential part of it. One of the things I also like to stress is that we don't punch down. So, I mean, if you wanted to dissect the pro-life kind of concept too, we wouldn't, for example, have a rally outside an abortion clinic, because I would argue that is pushing down, pushing down, because people who are getting an abortion or considering getting abortion are very vulnerable. They're women in very tense situation. So whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, it's like those are the last people who should be screamed at, like you see. And I see this all the time where there are people doing it. And number one, I think it actually has the opposite effect, right? So it's not even effective because it's like, okay, well, if I don't want, like, if those people are telling me not to do something, then I'm really going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And number two, you're targeting people who are not powerful. So what I think is protest is a tool to push the powerful to do things, right? Yeah. You're pushing major corporations. You're pushing political leaders, right? You're pushing, like major universities, right? You're pushing people who are in positions of power to effect change. So you wouldn't want to do something like that. You wouldn't, for example, if you were running a pro-choice rally, you wouldn't want to protest outside a church, for example. Yeah. Let's just say there was a church that was pushing pro-life doctrine. I would say don't do that. That's you're punching down if you're screaming at ordinary Christians who are in favor of pro-life policies.
Yeah.
Protest your congressman, your senator, your state officials, your governors, right? If there's a company that has a policy you don't like, protest the CEO, protest the corporate headquarters. Yeah. Right? It's what I even tell friends where, like, how many times have you been on a plane and it's delayed and someone's screaming at the flight attendant? It's like, as if the flight attendant can make your flight go on time, right? You want to yell at the CEO, and the people who work for the CEO are the ones who made the scheduling such that it's back-to-back flights, and that's why your flight is delayed. It's not the flight attendant who's just kind of doing his or her job.
I love it, though, that you have that kind of policy or that mindset with your company. That says a lot. That's great, because, you don't want to, just both of your examples with the church, with pro-choice and an abortion clinic with pro-life. I mean, it's a great example, and it says a lot about who your company is. So that's awesome.
Well, I think there's a lot of misinformation online. By the way, that's part of why I go on these podcasts and show all the time, is because I do think there's a lot of misinformation, because a lot of times people kind of say, whoa, this is a company that is compensated to organize protests. There's something that gives people a bad feeling about that. And I respect everyone's point of view. But part of it is you have to actually listen to me and my perspective so that I can unpack it for you and describe, hey, we are actually really a publicity company fundamentally.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So when you understand it in the context that we're a publicity company, I think you can better understand kind of where we're coming from and how we actually kind of try to affect positive change.
Yeah. So you've had a surge, from what I understand, of 400% this year, and it's around the DC area.
Yeah.
And is it just, tell me about that. I mean, 400% is insane. And is it, do you see it slowing down anytime soon, or do you see it continuing to increase? I think it's going to increase.
I think you're going to have a lot of interest in this sort of thing. And of course, requests doesn't necessarily equal what engagements that we take on. But there's a lot of interest among all people because, like I said, there's just a huge engagement with politics now. I actually think on a national level, it's not the best thing because I think that the idea of remaining apathetic is actually the symptom of a good country. The fact that most people can just sort of remain blissfully unaware, and the fact that people are getting engaged, in one sense, it's positive because we all as Americans have the right to be engaged in our country. But on the other hand, it's actually an indication that we might have too much division. Like I have so many friends who I never remember being political, and there have been a few what I call inflection points, right?
Yeah.
And I'm 34, so there's probably been 4 more before my lifetime. But like in my kind of adult lifetime, I remember the election of Obama was a major kind of point where it got a lot of liberals engaged, but also people who didn't like him engaged. Then you had Trump, right? In 2016, you had a lot of people really kind of finding what he was saying attractive and others finding what he was saying extraordinarily offensive. And then obviously you had COVID was a major inflection point. Because it forced, I think COVID more than anything forced politics to your home because now you're being told, okay, do you wear a mask?
Yeah.
Like on the one hand, people, on the conservative side are like, I'm being told how to educate my kid and to wear a mask and what to do. And on the other hand, people on the liberal side feeling that, oh my God, these kind of right-wing nut jobs are putting my safety and my health at risk by resisting vaccinations and resisting masks, right? So it actually made a lot of the abstract political, intensely personal for a lot of people. So I saw a lot of people get really engaged on either side of that in politics. And of course, you have kind of a lot of recent events now. And what you've seen is I think, a lot of polarization. So why I say there's a difference between requests and engagements is we're really prudent to we don't just take on everything that anyone who contacts us. Now, I will admit, when I started this business 13 years ago, anyone who came to me and write me a check, we'll take anything, right?
Yeah.
And basically that's how you start a business, right?
Yeah.
You can't start a business and be selective about who you take. But now that I've been in business so long, I'm kind of I'm much more looking at it as what cause do I want to align myself with, what style, what everything. So I tend to be a lot more selective about that. And I want to feel like I'm doing something that is making, the world a better place, or at minimum, not making the world a worse place, right? If you do a corporate PR stunt, right? Maybe it doesn't make the world a better place, but it doesn't make the world a worse place.
And are you trying it's impossible probably to get away from politics at this point, just because that's what seems like the whole, especially with what happened with Charlie Kirk this week. And I think it's just going to go more and more political. But how do you, and I don't necessarily need to know where you fall out in politics, but how do you kind of make yourself you stay almost equal for either way? So if you're Republican or Democrat and you have both parties coming to you, whichever one you are you, and you're taking on both clients, I'm assuming, how do you kind of just make sure that you're staying kind of equal for those clients of yours?
Well, I think it's not so much a matter of equal as a matter of having a cohesive set of kind of there's my ideology, and you don't have to 100% agree with my ideology in order for me to take you on as a client. You have to have a point that I think merits examination, right? Okay. So like I tend to be, I'm an independent. I grew up as a Democrat, but I'm very much an independent. I don't kind of pledge allegiance to either party because I don't think either has warranted my allegiance for reasons. But what I would say is that, here's an example, like the cryptocurrency field, right? I don't necessarily view I have some skepticism, like many do, about it, but I also feel that a lot of their arguments have a lot of merit and deserve to be advocated. So we've worked a lot advancing cryptocurrency causes over the years, probably since 2018 and to present, we've been advancing cryptocurrency causes. And that's not to say that Adam Swart favors zero regulation on cryptocurrency, even though some of my clients do. But it's that I think that there's probably too much regulation and too much red tape and too much stuff that I think that the cryptocurrency folks basically deserve to have their views out there, right? And we'll help them. So it's not a matter of Adam has to agree with them 100%, right? There are certain types of events that I would never do. For example, defund the police. I would never engage myself in that because I fundamentally think that's stupid. And it has no merit. There's no merit for arguing for defund the police. Now, if someone were to say, hey, we want to rally to demand 5 different accountability mechanisms for police to make sure that they're held accountable if they commit bad acts, I'm 100% for that, right? But I would never do sort of a defund the police type effort. So I always like to say I'm on the side of common sense, right? More often than not, Crowds on Demand takes on causes that are actually have the support of 80%, but where the 20% oftentimes are the most loud, the vocal, they're yelling and screaming, so they always get what they want. So we're actually sort of the force to advocate for the 80% that doesn't yell and scream, because our people can yell and scream. I mean, we try not to yell and scream, but and the like, to push the view of the silent majority. So most of the causes that I've taken on over the years, it's the type of cause that if I explained it to most people, they'd be like, yeah, I'm in favor of it. So,
well, you're completely different than what I thought you were going to be before I started this interview, I have to say.
What do you think?
You're different in a much better way. Like, I'm glad I had you on. I wanted to have you on, but I wasn't sure where you were going to go, where if you were going to be a big Donald Trump supporter and you were going to tell me that that's the type of protest that you want to do is pro-Trump and not. And I was trying to tell your publicist or who I was talking with, like, I want to make sure this doesn't get into a Donald Trump versus not Donald Trump. So the fact that you said you're independent and used to be Democrat just changed my whole point of view of you. Plus, what I really love about our conversation is that you talked about, you're not going to go off and do something that you don't kind of stand behind in a way. So that just, again, I think that says so much about, and I'm glad you're doing these interviews with other people too, so you can get that word out, because, I seen your interview on Fox and a couple other ones. I'm like, and I wasn't sure which way. I mean, he only gave you a few minutes to talk. So, but I wasn't.
Some of the cable news, I mean, obviously I like to, as I told you before, I think it's my mission to kind of go on these programs so that, because I think people's initial impressions of me, if they don't know me, are worse. Cable news is really a mixed bag because of the format. You have 8 minutes, for example, if you refer like when it's been on Fox and Friends, I think that was 8 minutes. Ingram Angle, 4 minutes, right? All you have time is for a few back and forths, right? Like, imagine if you were playing a baseball game with 1 inning. Right. That's kind of what cable news is. It's a baseball game with 1 inning, right? So it's just hard to have a full understanding of who I am and my ideas. And of course, I think there are people who may say, okay, I've heard everything you say and I still don't agree, but I certainly am not I certainly don't want to be viewed as a partisan for the right or the left, because that's the last thing I want to be. I want to keep my options open, because there are cases where the right is right, and there are cases where the left is right. And like, just examples of common sense. It's like, I'm a liberal in the sense that I don't think people should be able to be dying on the street because they can't access healthcare. And a conservative podcaster asked me, like, well, what if they are a smoker? What if they're a drinker? What if they are eating fast food? I'm like, yeah, those are all very bad decisions that they made. The penalty for bad decisions is not death.
Yes.
Right. So the penalty for bad decisions, there are plenty of penalties for doing all of those things, such as ending in the hospital in the first place, which sucks, right? So my feeling is I'm a liberal in that regard, but I'm a conservative in the regard that, and it shouldn't be conservative, that people deserve safe cities. Like, one of my number one kind of goals is to organize campaigns for safe cities across the country, because I think, and it sucks that that's a conservative goal, because I think liberals are the ones who love cities. They love public transit. They love green spaces. They love parks. But you can build the prettiest parks, but if they're overrun by drug dealers and tent cities and crime, and you can't take the subway because you're worried you're going to get stabbed, right? Then all of those beauty projects are not going to do anything, and they're actually quickly going to not become beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco's a good point of that. We're such a liberal city, and they had the worst, homeless population and things going on there now. Then, it's kind of insane.
Yeah, it's my hometown, so I know all about that, and it's tragic, because actually, if you just took all the people out of San Francisco, it's actually, I would argue, the prettiest city in the world. I've traveled in the world, like all over the world, like almost every major city, and I would say, just on geography alone, San Francisco is the prettiest city. I mean, I'm sure people would disagree with me, and that's
a beautiful city. Yeah,
I think it's gorgeous. It's got a perfect climate. It's got, I mean, now let's put the people back in. You've got like tech industry, innovation, really pretty Victorian buildings. I mean, this is a city that should be like the greatest city in the world, and it isn't. And like, you go to the main subway stations, and it feels like I'm in an apocalypse movie.
Yeah. How did you even come up with this idea to start this company? Like, what kind of sparked this with you?
Well, I worked on a lot of political campaigns in college, again, mostly on the Democratic side. And what's interesting is, when I was a young organizer, I was organizing like Southern California Democrats in many cases around a lot of these big campaigns, including Kamala's like Attorney General run, before anyone had really heard of her. And basically, like, all the old guys who ran the campaign at the time were like, they were my age in the 60s, right? So they were used to the idea of, you put like flyers on the quad and 5,000 people turn out. And they're like, well, Adam, can you get 10,000 students, next week? And it's like, no, like, obviously not. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. But the idea is, they existed in an era of a lot more political kind of involvement. But I noticed, okay, you get 50 people here, you get 100 people there. That works. Protests actually work better than rallies. If you could get 20 people out there outside the opposition rally, there's 1,000 ralliers and 20 protesters. The 20 protesters are going to actually get as much media time as the 1,000 ralliers in some cases. Yeah. So it's a really effective technique, honestly. So yeah, I ended up kind of involving myself in that, but seeing that there was a huge need for turning out people. And being in LA, I initially started with, let's hire like actors who are out of work to do that. So I kind of became known for that. And this whole initial business model like still haunts me, because media that doesn't like me will say, oh, he's hiring actors, because that is how I started the business.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore for political events. We do for PR stunts.
Yeah.
We're known for that. So that still like haunts me now, the fact that we did that when we started.
Well, small business has got to do what it's got to do to get started sometimes, you know?
That was the initial concept, was hire the actors, right?
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant idea because, of course, so I say myself, because you have these actors, it's like, instead of working as a valet, you can actually like kind of act the part, right? So it was smart. That was a little disingenuous, admittedly, but it was interesting. So you turn these people out and it was so effective. So I was like, I'm just going to start a business based on it, in college, see what happens. But of course, there was so much like interest in the business, even from like an early stage, that it kind of ended up growing and growing, and it ended up obviously becoming my job. But yeah, I think it's kind of funny. I like how setting the right context really matters.
Yeah. And how do you kind of measure success for whenever you're doing one of these, protester rallies? Is it the amount of press coverage you get? Is it what, if it's what the political reports are saying? Is it the turnout that you get? Like, how do you kind of measuring that?
Well, that's really not up to me. It's up to what the client wants. So all of those are very reasonable objectives, but it really, the ultimate arbiter of that is the client, because as a business person, what I'm trying to do, aside from my part about advancing causes that I like or companies that I like, it's also a matter of ultimately the company has got to be happy with our work. So if some clients are like, okay, I really want to make everyone in this trade show, let's just say a corporate publicity event, make everyone in this trade show know about my business, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, if everyone's talking about your business, then you've accomplished it. Some will say, okay, I want to sell a bunch of product at this trade show. Okay. Well, that's easy. So when it's a corporate thing, it's kind of an easy one to measure of like ROI or maybe press coverage or something. When it's a cause, okay, well, the long term you can advance, so you can measure is, hey, are you getting the legislation that you want passed, right? Are you stopping what you don't want passed, right? So those are the long term. The initial term, could be press coverage, could be social media, could be whether like a certain council person or, voted a certain way, right, instead of another way. So there's a lot of ways to measure it. It just depends. Some clients are very media motivated and others are very policy motivated. And of course, others in the corporate space are often money motivated. So, yeah.
And are you helping the company or whoever's coming to you to do this? Are you helping them kind of think about what the strategy is to get the word out on social, or to get it out, on YouTube or Instagram or any of those channels?
Absolutely. We will. It really depends, though, because again, some customers come to us and they say, all we need is for you to do it. We already have the plan. We already have the sketch. We just need you to implement it. So use us essentially to source the people and everything like that. Other times they'll basically say, hey, here's our objective. Let's work together and get it done. So, and we want your input based on your years of experience. So either way is fine. And in many cases, there are times where it's been the first where the clients come and said, here's what I want to do. And I'm like, I'm kind of skeptical, but sometimes the client actually knows more than you because it's their space. So they know exactly what needs to be done. Other times I know more than the client. And one of the things that I always try to do in everything, by the way, and this is just an advice, let me give you advice for your listeners. If you ever try to kind of get anything done, for example, with customer service in a company, always try to figure out who is actually empowered to get you what you need and what are their motivations. What can you do or say to convince them? So again, I used earlier the example of the flight attendant, right? And the example of the flight attendant, and it's like, okay, well, the flight attendant isn't empowered to make the flight on time. So it's like, if you're really upset, figure out who actually can make your situation better, right? Who can rebook you on a different flight, right? And maybe the entry-level customer service person doesn't have the authority to book you on the flight you need. So maybe you need the supervisor, right? But in advocacy, it's the same way. Like, I see so many of these rallies where you're like, we're rallying at city council in LA because we don't like Donald Trump. Like, I don't think there's a single Republican on the Los Angeles City Council. So why are you
going there?
The Los Angeles City Council that you don't like Trump? You think they like Trump? Like, so it doesn't make any sense. You're going after the wrong people and without specific demands. And actually, one of the least successful movements of all time, I would almost say the least successful movement of all time, is Occupy Wall Street. And Occupy Wall Street was the least successful movement of all time. And the way I measure that is number of people involved, which is a lot. We're thousands and thousands, to objectives achieved, 0.
Yeah.
Right. So 0 objectives achieved. All the people they protested and were kind of mad at, in theory, are all richer than ever before. Yeah. Right. And no one went to jail from the financial crisis. Nothing was ever done. No comprehensive reform was ever done. Right. Yeah. So if you look at, there were millions of people who kind of sort of took to the streets. I mean, I think they were like lying in the streets.
Yeah. I mean, they were sleeping, and they were camping out for weeks or months even.
They made a couple key mistakes. And by the way, their timing couldn't have been better, right? Because like, if you think about it, if your goal was to basically crack down on Wall Street, you have the biggest financial crash, right, since 1929, right? And not a lot of people remember the last one, right? It was too long ago. So 2008, biggest financial crash. Then you couple that with the fact that you have a liberal, like Obama was elected, plus you have an almost super majority of Democrats in Congress, and theoretically Democrats are the ones who would be the ones regulating, Wall Street, right? So you have all of the right fixins to basically do what you're going to do, right? But they came basically with a lackluster protests and a lack of a cohesive demand. My other advice to people engaged in activism who can't afford to hire us would be figure out a reasonable set of demands, right? A reasonable set of demands, and don't allow any way for them to give you lip service. Because what these guys did was like, Wall Street's bad, guys, like, the power, the corporations. So what you gave is they let liberal Democrats off the hook by basically just being able to say, yeah, we agree with you. We hate Wall Street. Like, yeah, we're with the people, but without actually doing anything. Right. Yeah. So that was kind of the major miscalculation. What you want to do is say, here are our 10 demands. And okay, I'm not saying you get all 10, but you should have 10 demands, with a few of them being crazy and unreasonable and several of them being moderate and reasonable, and push these people to say, why will you, Senator Schumer, why will you, President Obama, not do X, Y, Z, right? And we are demanding that you do it. And here's essentially what we are like, and we're a political bloc, and we are going to vote for your primary opponent or whatever if you don't do it. So again, to use the kind of quintessential example of customer service, when you're engaged in customer service, you want to, in addition to complaining, you want to suggest to them what you want. So I recently had a situation where my flight was canceled, right? And I think I was flying from, San Francisco to LA, and they routed me through Portland. That was the reroute. I'm like, okay, I am not going through Portland from San Francisco to Los Angeles. So, I told them, I was like, this is the flight I want. Rebook me on like a different airline. Yeah. And they did. But if you just said, hey, I hate this thing, they'd be like, oh, well, I'm so sorry you hate it. Yeah. But it's much easier if you say, this is what I'm asking you to do. This is why I'm mad. This is what I'm asking you to do. So that's what helps in your day-to-day life, and it certainly helps in your advocacy life.
And have you ever had a public response to something that you put together where it went completely viral and you were shocked about it?
Yeah, a lot of times. And sometimes it's the ones that you least expect. I told you about the cryptocurrency one. Yeah. One of the ones we did for cryptocurrency was we had a bunch of 60-year-old, kind of chubby white dudes outside called Bankers Against Bitcoin. Basically, it was a protest of it was a fake protest to sort of illustrate how a lot of the opponents of Bitcoin are kind of stuck in a different era. So we had a bunch of overweight white guys in their 60s kind of complaining about Bitcoin. Yeah. Right. And that I was like, okay, this is cute. But it ended up going to the top page of Reddit and becoming a huge phenomenon. It helped because the cryptocurrency people are very big on social media. So that shared more than it would have been. But that's just sort of an example. One of my other favorite ones was delete Facebook. So we're behind it was 2017 through 2019, basically, when everyone was really upset at Facebook. I mean, conservatives have always hated Facebook because it's, it's Silicon Valley, you know, it's liberal, right? But liberals didn't like it because there was this perception that Trump and the Russians used it to win the election. And obviously you had allegations that their kind of platform, their algorithm essentially caused a genocide in Myanmar, which is horrible. And it's a view that I subscribe to. So we basically kind of had this delete Facebook campaign. Like whenever Zuckerberg would do any kind of appearance, we'd have people outside and everything. And it was awesome. It was so successful, actually, that they changed their name. Like imagine a $1 trillion company changing its name. Yeah. Because they call themselves Meta now because the name Facebook is so synonymous with hatred and division that they changed their name. And number two, they de-emphasized political advertising in favor of commercial advertising. Yeah. So again, I still hate the company, to tell you the truth, but I still think they need to change a lot of things. But hey, that's a huge, huge thing that I'm really proud of.
Yeah, that's an awesome one. I mean, I like the cryptocurrency too because I want it to succeed so I can retire one day earlier.
Okay, yeah, that'd be lovely.
Tell me one of the cool events that you've done that, probably a corporate event. Like, have you done like any? I don't know. I'm trying to think like a cool flash mob or something like that you've had to put together. Something that's been really
well. I'll tell you a really funny one that we've done. We put together a wedding once.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so basically it was a wedding. So it was a very wealthy gentleman from abroad who was marrying a girl who, I guess, I mean, I don't want to say like other people would call her like from the trailer park kind of vibe. Yeah. I don't mean that in a derogatory manner. Don't cancel me.
You won't get canceled on this podcast.
but basically his family was very, very wealthy, but this is the girl he wanted to marry, but he was doing this wedding at like a very, very high-end place, and all of his family from abroad was going to be there. And it's like, okay, well, we can't actually she doesn't have any like reputable looking friends or family. So the wedding planner is like, we need like 200 people who can be essentially her friends, like who are young professionals. So like you and I would kind of fit the mold of like the type of people who we would want. Like I'd be my own target demographic here.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we had these people out there, obviously dressed for the wedding, but about a week before, I got a call from the wedding planner saying, okay, we also need some cousins, some aunts, some uncles. I was like, okay, all right, we'll have some cousins, aunts, and uncles too. But then 3 days before, I got a call saying we also need the father of the bride.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, okay, well, we need a white dude, like about 60 years old-ish, maybe late 50s. To walk her down the aisle, right? And I need her to cry because like that's what the dad is supposed to do. So we did that. And it's just so funny watching this whole scene playing out, just like the whole wedding, knowing it's like 90% of the people in the room are just like my people, and it went like very well. But then the other funny part about that is that I was like training people for like a while to basically be like, hey, you need to have like a story of how you know her. Because if you're talking to her family, they're going to want to know. And what's funny is when we got to the wedding, the family just all stayed to like 3 different tables in the side. None of them spoke a word of English. So that all of that preparation was not necessary.
And are you married?
No. Well, sort of in a committed relationship. But
so will you hire people for your wedding if you do have a wedding one day?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't think so, to tell you the truth.
You probably have enough friends, I'm sure, to invite and families.
Well, I think and that's a very niche service. It's a good question. I think the reason is that I also have to pay for the food. So if you're getting married, I don't necessarily like there's very few ways that I would say don't hire me, but I'm like, I don't know whether this particular thing is for everyone in terms of the wedding, because I don't necessarily have the challenge of needing to have a more reputable group of friends than my existing friends. So while I don't think it's a appropriate fit for me, it could be for other people. I mean, I use that uniquely because it's not like we do this all that like we do corporate events, publicity, protests, like all the time, like constantly. Like there's probably multiple going on, like at more or less all times. Whereas the in terms of the other stuff, the sweating thing, that's pretty unique. Like I don't get that call every day. So sometimes I love to do like unique events, and sometimes I never even thought of that particular use until we were contacted.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's your website if somebody wants to use you?
Sure. www.crowdsondemand.com. That's www.crowdsondemand.com. And then my Twitter handle, if any of you guys are still on that crazy platform, at CEO Adam Swart. There's not a better platform though, because like Blue Sky is wacky.
Yeah, I don't know if Blue Sky's gonna make it.
Like they're all bad. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're really all bad. There's no good social media platform. I almost feel like Jack Dorsey's initial version of Twitter, like the pre-woke left version, but the also like Elon Wild West version, might have actually been the best version where like it was wild, but it wasn't like a left or right echo chamber. It was just like kind of wacky. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, but you should do Instagram also, so you can show people the crowds and all that other stuff of what you do. That might be a good way.
You will think about that. I will think about that, Zach.
Well, I think I'm so glad I got to interview you. Like I said, you're a completely different person than I thought you were going to be, in a much better way. You know, I work in the corporate world, and if I ever have anything like this, I'm definitely contacting you right away, because I think you're really smart and brilliant the way you're thinking about things, and you're a great guest. So thank you so much for being on.
Zach, it's been a blast chatting with you. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody. So go ahead and be sure to go to crowdsondemand.com. And if you need Adam's company for something, he's the one I think that you should go to. And I'll put his Twitter and the website in the description of this video or podcast, however you're listening or watching. Thanks again, Adam, for being on.
Thanks, Zach.